Hi everyone, and welcome to the Nerdy Up North podcast. It's a nerdy podcast and it's hosted by Northern Nerds. I am one of your hosts, Sam.
And I'm the other host, Paul. And if you wondered why Sam looked all surprised and strange there, it's because I didn't say we're live, because we're not live.
I was waiting for something to either come in my ear and tell us we're recording or you to say it. Sorry, I'm thrown off. It's pre-recording, just throwing us off completely.
Yes, we'll edit this out of post. I will not. But yes, so we are joined by the lovely Jake and the wonderful Lauren. This isn't an actual episode of the podcast. It is a special episode. So it's not one of the ones with the numbers on. It's not going to be like the Ghost Watch episode where we can't watch anymore because stuff took it down. The BBC hates it.
The BBC took us down.
No, that one's in the Phantom Zone, but this is like next to the Phantom Zone.
So this is the next to the Phantom. So yes, we thought we would do a very special episode of the podcast, with it being Free Comic Book Day on this Saturday. Yay! It's known in the industry of where all the nerds who haven't read a comic book in years come out for a freebie. Let's be honest. Or a nice little deal type thing. But we thought, because we are branching out and doing different topics and different variations, Sammy has wonderfully done her Game of Thrones talk that has come to an end of the season. Goodwill is still trekking across the universe with Graham, trying to get as many innuendos as possible with Goodwill doesn't even notice. And Sammy has a very special episode starting on Monday, which is Monsters Up North. If you check out, we have got a little intro, like I say, a little advertisement, which I've worked up today, which I'm quite happy with. This is going to be a regular thing, what we do. It's probably not going to be like a weekly or might not even be a monthly, but it'll be one that we'll do every so often. It's going to be Comics Up North. So where we are going to be discussing comic books, have people on to talk about comics. And we thought, with today being Free Comic Book Day, we would get the comic book nerd in herself, who basically schools me on a daily basis in the Discord or on anywhere when I try and be clever and mention a comic book, and she just goes, no, that's not quite right. This is the facts. So we have got the lovely
Lauren. She's been mine since 2014.
That's all right. We can share. I'm sure she shouldn't.
It's enough for me to go around. It's absolutely fine.
Going to say create that type of sandwich, but we'll say it's a bit early for that in the day. It's not even quite close to 5 o'clock yet, and we're not getting the innuendos in. And of course, like I say, he is a bit of an aficionado, or he likes to ask a lot of questions on comic book, and as Wolverine is keeping an eye on him from his shoulder.
He's talking to you.
Yeah. But he's just basically like trying to keep us like not look at what Gene and Scott's up to in the background.
No, we don't look at that.
No.
Like the green screen maniac I've been called lately.
As long as you don't do any like shots where you're in Joblins or Woolworths again. So
no,
were you Woolworths last night, were you?
Yes, I can't do any time traveling. Sorry. It takes a while to fix the machine every week.
And I'm through the first week. Where was it? Geordie Jeans.
Either.
I think so.
Yeah,
just taking the people back to where they feel most comfortable, which is the highest.
Geordie Jeans.
The 90s, yes.
The 90s. But yes, Jake was twitching last night. He was playing all the retro N64 games, and he was using the world's worst joystick that should not be used. It is terrible.
So many games, too many. I thought you were reaching for one there, Lauren. I was going to start cheering.
It's going to bring out. She's going to
my Rocket Raccoon mug.
I've still got a paw. I've got a hand.
That is just awful. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't work. But yes. So
I did not play any comic book games. Sorry.
No. What comic book games was for the N64? Just thinking.
Superman 64.
Like I say, the one computer game that never ever worked was Superman, because he's just too powerful. But yes. Do you want to do your disclaimer, Sammy? Might as well. We're going to be sharing some opinions.
Yeah. Well, everything discussed in today's episode is our opinion and our opinion alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us in the Facebook group where we can have an open discussion. What we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong. We can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behaviour out of nerdism.
well said. And especially in comic books, as we've discussed before we went live, there's a lot of sexism, I would say, in the comic book industry, or the comic book trade. Guys, girls can read comics too. Always remember that.
And we do.
And have for many, many, many years.
Yeah, yes. And some of the best writers are women as well, so get over it. But yes, I know my experiences of this day. I probably haven't been going to them as regularly as probably other people have, or like Lauren's been involved. My experiences are normally queuing up at Travelman, probably about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, waiting for it to open, just because you get all the back issues that haven't sold like for the last year. They normally sell them for like 25 pence. So
cool.
So you can pick up a good run doing that way, but then you go to the other stores and see what offers they have got. But you generally do get for the free ones that they give out. They've started, because before they weren't announcing them, you would just go on the day and just find them. But they've been pre-announcing them a lot more lately, because I've been noticing them on Facebook or on the advertisements, like get this comic or get our comic. But a lot more independent ones have been involved as well, I've noticed. I don't know if anyone else has seen that.
I will say it's probably is because you're seeing the advertisements for them more now. But indies have been part of Free Comic Book Day for a very long time, because it's a way they can signal boost themselves and get themselves. But I think one thing to be mindful of is retailers actually do pay for the free comics. It's a very, very, very small cost amount. It's not like the normal cost amount of a regular comic, but this can be part of what why there might be not a huge choice at some stores as opposed to others, because obviously that will come out of the budget. But Free Comic Book Day is generally it's like Nerd Christmas. It is Nerd Christmas. It's a very good day for your retailers, but do be kind to them.
Yes, that's the thing, because I have witnessed a lot of bad manners when it comes to it. Even if the doors open, I'll just get this little thing out of the way.
We have a diner.
Yes, she's been a little bit of a fuss. But yes, a lot of people do kind of, as you said, with the being cost involved, they kind of think, it's their right to certain things, or if the doors open a few minutes later than they wanted to. I have heard people kicking off in queues saying this is ridiculous. It's whether you've chosen, that's all about choices and stuff as well. And when they go through the bags, or because there's different comic book shops do it in different ways. What I've noticed, some have a pre-ordered bag, so you walk in, rather than having to pick which ones you want, they give you the bag with all the ones they've got in that store, and then you can walk around and do your shopping. It's a bit more organized. Or when there's others, there's just a pile on the table, and people are grabbing 4 or 5 of the same one, and it becomes like that. And some of them do actually go for a little bit of money later on. I remember the one I missed out on a few years ago was, I can't remember the name of the comic, but it was the one with Thanos on as the cover. And it was before Infinity War came out, and I think so. It was a very cool looking cover, but people were actually selling that for say 20 or 30 quid, say a week after it was given away for free.
Yeah, often especially like the Marvel and the DC comics, they will kick off either their big summer plot or because there's one of the main Marvel ones is the new Uncanny Avengers book. So they've done, it's not the first time they've done Uncanny Avengers, but the premise is X-Men and Avengers on the same team. Yeah. Which,
never works. It never works.
Of course it won't. There'll be like cat fights and everything. It's going to be, it'll end in tears. It will end in tears. But to kind of feel it will give you the groundwork of this, or either a preview page or a groundwork, or it will give you some little factoid that you kind of need for context, kind of thing. So it's very, very sneaky.
Yes.
Very, very sneaky. So this is why some people can speculate on these certain books, which speculation is not a healthy part of the it's fans have got every right to kind of speculate in terms of theory and everything, but when they kind of monetize it, but then that's kind of
that's just the comic book industry as a whole thing. When they bring out certain ones, like the ones, like, not to, if I go off the subject of comic book, like the ones on like our record that they thought they were going to be the big, like when DC brought out Punchline, the first character, like female, like you couldn't for love of money get that comic, but like so people were charging stupid amount of money the first week. Then people realized that the character wasn't that great, so a month down the line comics were selling for half the price as what they were doing originally. Then you got people kicking off. The hilarious one, and again I'll probably hold my hand up, I did cash in on this one, the Bat one, when Dark Comic and DC Dark brought out the Bat Dick.
I remember that. I think I own it.
It wasn't even that big.
No, it was quite shriveled. It was very cold in the back cave that
day.
But it was just like I say, a light silhouette, like little line that showed, like you say, that you could tell Batman was circumcised, so it was all good. But people was like, so I think I bought it for £2.50, and within a month it was going for like 60 or 80 quid.
Wow.
People lost their shit over this one.
Yes.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I feel like everyone's trying to chase, like, obviously, like, stupid things like Action Comics #1. People are always trying to, like, find the next thing. I don't think it can happen anymore because the print's so much more and digital now that you could always read it.
The bubble is eventually going to burst on all this. Because
it did in the 90s though, didn't it?
Yeah.
So like everything
absolutely
when there was bringing out,
because they tried again for the death of Superman, didn't the people were buying that thinking like this is gonna be like my $1 million, and like for the printed so much it just wasn't.
and someone got my issue of that, didn't they, Sammy?
Yes. Sitting in my collection right now.
It's still in the bag. But
it's still in the bag. It's in my collection. I actually a couple of months ago I was at Darlington, and they have such a cool comic book shop, and me and Ant were in, and he noticed that there's obviously a re-release of Action Comics #1, and he says buy it and frame it and make it look like we own it, we have money. So we have.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think Loot Crate done a version as well that you can get. That goes for like about 20 quid now.
Both of the big two are doing more. They're called facsimiles, and they're basic complete reproductions of what these would have looked like, complete with the adverts and everything.
Yeah, it's completely like as it was. I got
they're really cool.
And Detective Comics issue #1, so I got them too for like £3, and I was like, we'll frame them, we'll put them up, they'll make us look like we have money.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as owning the original, but it is in a really affordable way for people to be able to read the original, but be able to read it in paper, because although digital copies is an amazing way, and it's an amazing way to like save space and save money, but there's something nice about paper.
Yeah, yes. I guess
nice the smell. Paper. I love the smell of old comics as well.
The smell of old comics. It's just that tang of acid.
Yes. I'm half and half. So I have a large digital collection, but I also have a large real life material collection too.
Yeah. I've lost track of how big my physical collection is now.
Oh, ours is just dotted all around the house. Like there's so many under the bed behind us. There's like piles upon piles that doesn't even scratch the surface.
I'm up to 17 or 18 boxes.
Is that the long boxes?
The long boxes.
No, it's mainly short boxes. I do have a couple of long boxes, but the problem with long boxes is I can't move them when they're full.
No, I've got three of the stationery. Yeah, I've got 3 of the long boxes in the loft. The ones because I went through a big through everything because I went crazy and was like, I need to have such and such. But there's a lot of pressure and stress when you've got expensive comics, especially because you don't want to keep them in a long box, because if anything happens to the long box, you can keep them framed, but then you think, oh, sun damage. Then it just, like, I know it sounds strange, but it really stressed us out, because I remember I had was it Amazing Spider-Man? Was it 300, the one with the first official appearance of Venom, the one with the cover?
Yeah, the 300s in the circle.
Yeah. I had that one and framed. It was on my wall, and I was like, kept on looking at it each day and going, I don't know what to do with that, because every time you look at it as well, and when you look at it online, the price was just going up and up. Because I think I bought it for 80 quid, and that was like I say, it wasn't anything like graded or like there wasn't any problems. It was not like it was fully complete. I sold it for 180, but I think during lockdown I was gutted because it spiked and went up to about 300-400 because during lockdown, as Lauren said, it was impossible to be a comic book collector during lockdown because everyone had spare cash because they weren't going out, they weren't doing things, so everyone was buying comics then. So the price of comics went up because we had to move house, and so we needed money to do everything to move. So I had to sell a lot of my comics at that time, and I'd just lost my job, so I was going to another job, and I had like loads of early of the Amazing Spider-Mans, which I always picked up for like £10, £15 at the time. So I sold them for like £25 an issue, and they shot up to like 50 or 60 quid per comic during lockdown.
Yeah,
because people had money and they were like, the market just exploded. So it's come back down a little bit now, I've noticed, but still.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is a consistently popular character, though.
Yeah.
There's certain characters that will stay. They won't necessarily spike all the time, but they will stay quite high because it's that character.
Yeah.
But another important point to say that I want to say before we move off, like storage comics and everything, please rebag and reboard your comics every 3 to 5 years.
Didn't know that.
Especially if they are older, because the acid will bleed out.
Oh my god, I didn't know that.
Yeah, please rebag and reboard your comics, otherwise the bags will start to melt.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Sam's gonna like pull comics out and be like, no, melted.
Yeah, no. If you like pick say like especially like a silver or a bronze age comic out of a box and it's been in there for like 10-15 years, that's why it will stink. It will stink. The bag will be yellow, the board will be yellow, it'll like grow legs and crawl off. But yeah, it's a genuine thing that bags and boards don't last forever. They do need to be replaced, and the sellotape starts to melt as well.
I know what I'm doing this weekend then.
See, helpful hints and tips. That's why we get the experts on this. So
I had no idea about that.
So I know, Jake, you were saying you've got quite a thirst of knowledge, and you've got a few questions that you wanted to like throw at us. So fire away.
Because I'm underqualified to be talking about Free Comic Book Day because I've never been to one, but I would like to go to one. So, is there anything somebody needs to know before they kind of go on this journey?
Basically, turn up quite early because there will be queues. This is Free Comic Book Day is a global event. It has been going for roughly 20 years now. Barring
2002. Yeah,
2002. Barring like the couple years in the pandemic when obviously globally places were shut. But yeah, it's been going a very, very, very long time. It's quite well established. People still like, it's a Free Comic Book Day. This is going to sound really patronizing, but just don't assume that everything is free. There will be certain comics that say Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah.
There'll be like a table, or there will be bags. It depends entirely on how the store does it. So yeah, and if you it helps if you know if you do go to a store that does have the selection out, if you kind of know in your head what you want to pick up, so you can just like grab it rather than like ooh, and just like there's a queue of 30 people behind you. Like,
be prepared, Jakey.
Because
there is a website. It is literally freecomicbookday.com, which does list the comics that are available each year.
It breaks it down great. I'm on the website right now. It's got green, blue, and red sections. So green is all ages, everyone, appropriate for children, teens, and adults. And then you've got blue, which is teen, it's appropriate for teen readers of 13 plus. And then you got the red section, which is for mature.
Yeah, it's color-coded.
18s only.
Because it is a family thing. It is a family thing, and comics aren't just aimed at little kids. They're aimed at like the more grown-up people as well. So that's another thing.
I think a lot of us got into trouble with that over time, where I'm sure we've all accidentally picked up a comic that was a bit too up there in the age. I think when I was a kid, it was like Mask comics, because obviously I'd seen the movie. I was like, oh, it's The Mask. It's Jim Carrey. He's hilarious. But it was like I can't remember the company. Is it IDW or Dark Horse? Yeah.
It would Dark. Oh, which one?
It was one of
those two.
Yeah, and I was like, and he was like killing people. I think he killed Santa Claus in the episode.
Oh no!
I'm like, all right, interesting.
My first comic I shouldn't have had was one of the original Turtles comics.
Exactly, I was about to say that. There was actually
the black and white ones, like when they were like full on super violent.
Certainly, and they had advertisements for strippers and stuff in as well.
Really?
They used to have tits in the Turtles comics.
I can't remember where I got
this from.
I assume it's just like a newsagent. I was like 4 or 5. I assume it's in a newsagent. Just a point, turtle, and like whoever, like, oh yeah, whatever, bought it for me, just not realizing, because also this is a Turtles cartoon, so you didn't, you didn't know. I didn't know this was a thing.
But yes, they definitely weren't the same. I remember that because I think the issue I had leather head on, and he was just like cussing out the Turtles as well, like proper swearing at them. I was like, fucking hell. I was good. Mikey's taking a beating here, but yeah.
What does this word say, Dad?
I think it's the same as well with like Deadpool, like the Deadpool comics. I took my nephew to the comic book store in Newcastle and went, right, I want you to get into this is my world. Unfortunately, he didn't really get into it. I went, if there's anything you want to read, he was like, I want to read a Deadpool. I was like, nope, we'll walk away from these ones. No.
My nephew was at one point teetering on the idea of becoming a comic book reader, and he wanted to start with The Walking Dead. And I think he was about 9 years old at the time. Goodness. And I was like, okay, I have the first book. You can borrow that. And I don't think he even read one page.
Are you ready for the horrors of the human psyche, kid?
Yeah, this is the nephew that got scared of Shaun of the Dead because it was too real life. So I didn't know what I should never have handed it over. I just want to be the cool aunt.
He learned though. That's the main thing. I think I referenced this back on the True Crime podcast, but with kids, it's kind of like they kind of be able to need to like associate with like, just because something's not real doesn't mean it's okay. And
definitely,
Deadpool's not necessarily a hero.
No,
he's not necessarily a villain either. He's like kind of bounces between all, but that's kind of the appeal.
He's an asshole, basically.
Yeah, he's a twat.
I was thinking the same thing.
He can like have boundaries sometimes. Like one of my favorite comic runs from the past like 10 years or so was Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force. Which is basically a Black Ops X-Men team, which had Wolverine, Psylocke, Deadpool, Phantom X, Archangel, and Age of Apocalypse Nightcrawler after a bit. But they were chasing down this little kid version of Apocalypse, who's like the main, like one of the main X-Men bad guys. And they had this chance of killing child Apocalypse. And even Deadpool was just like, no, we're not going to kill this kid. And then Phantom X just shot him in the head. It's just like, okay.
Right.
So, yeah.
But it didn't work, obviously, because he's the rocks of the eternal shore. Crash against them and be broken.
That's the thing. With it comes to comics as well, I know we touched on it before. There's waves. There's waves of good comics, waves of bad comics, waves of mediocre comics as well. But I think when it comes oversaturated as what we have been, especially when, like I say, the universes keep getting reset and redone, it is a hard time to be a comic book reader. I'll be honest. I've kind of left the path. The only comic I'm collecting at the moment is the new Walking Dead Deluxe, which is basically just the new colorized version, which is there's nothing extra, just the pages are not black and white, and I am just so living for when it gets to issue 100. Wow. That's going to be like, see that Glenn get his head smashed in color will be quite a thing. But
ooh, I've actually met the artist for Walking Dead at a comic shop in Leeds. He was doing like a signing. The way he draws is amazing. He was actually like drawing people in the line, like he was like knocking it out super quick. Like you can just look at somebody and draw a zombie version of them.
That's crazy.
He's excellent. Like
he's a really nice guy dude as well. Too. Yeah.
But that's the thing, because when we were talking about talking to Holly on the podcast as well, because it's a shame not to mention her when we're doing a comic book issue. We should have got her on, actually.
I can't imagine what time it would be there right now, though.
I know last time it was early in the morning. I was like, she's
Really
like, I'm up at 4 o'clock doing yoga and stuff. I was like, fucking hell.
Yeah, me too.
Absolutely.
But when I was asking her like how quickly she can does the artwork or does a drawings, there's half an hour to an hour to do a full page. I'm like, what? She's like, yeah. We haven't got time to kind of take your time with it. So you learn yourself and you train yourself to do once you get the hang of it and used to it, it becomes second nature. And so it must be just muscle memory at times. But I know when I draw, it takes days. It's because I'm one of those where I draw everything really slowly, and if it lines out of place, I'm like shit, trying to redo everything and stuff like that. But just amazes me how quickly these artists do their artwork, and when you see them do live Twitch streams or do the videos, it's amazing. I know at the Newcastle Con a few years ago, when they had comic book artists in, because that's the big thing with comic. I don't know why they call them comic cons now, because they don't actually have comic book artists there.
No,
not usually.
It's crazy.
The only one is Thought Bubble.
Yeah. And that's,
you can at the bigger ones you do get Artists Alley, and I do talking to people who do smaller scale ones and trying to buy theirs. But yeah, you're right. I haven't seen any big build comic artists on websites for a while.
The only one's Thought Bubble, and I've had to listen to Carolyn, who is an artist, and another artist talk about pencils.
Oh yeah, artists are big nerds. So yeah.
Oh, you should hear her talk about a white pencil. She can talk for hours over it, and I'm sitting there pencil.
I'd be fascinated.
Come to a Comic-Con with us.
But the one in Newcastle, that when they had them in, they had a Dave Gibbons from Watchmen.
And
literally, I was terrified of meeting him because, say, is he going to be Alan Moore? Is he going to be one of these crazy, scary people?
No one.
No. But when I met him, he was one of the loveliest guys. He was he literally talked to us for about 15 minutes about all the different projects. Because he was setting up this online thing with a new publisher where he was trying to get people in that way. And I was I had my V from Vendetta graphic novel, and he opened it up and he picked out a crayon. That was the thing that completely threw me, because I was he's going to either have a Sharpie or have a pencil. But no, he pulled out a crayon, a green crayon as well, and he drew V. Literally, start, because I thought, when I started drawing, I don't know if anyone else, I always start the hardest bit, the face, the features, and break out. He just started drawing from the top, sketching this, the hat. So he sketched the hat, brought down, and brought the eyes, brought the tash, and it was literally just in one movement, going down in one fluent moment where, it was almost when you were scratching something out on a piece of paper or doodling like that. He'd done that, and it was be perfect on a piece of paper.
Freaking nuts! It's so
fascinating,
crazy how they do it. I met one of my favorite comic book artists, Babs Tarr, at Thought Bubble, and I could not physically speak to her. I just stood and I stood and stared at her. And one of Carolyn's friends knows Kieran Gillen. And he was like, come on, I'll go and introduce you to him. And I was like, absolutely not. After what I've just done there, it's not happening. I don't know why. For me, the absolute superstar celebrities to me. And I just clammed up completely in front of her. And Tess Fowler, though, spoke to her for ages. She was an absolute delight. I nearly didn't pay her for her picture, but
Sammy's getting the freebies.
I felt awful. I was like, "Oh my god, I have to pay you." But yeah, I'm no good when they are celebrities to me.
That's nice, because I think a lot of people forget about the human cost of comics and cartoons and things like that, where it is actually someone who has to sit there and draw Spider-Man again on this page. And his outfit's pretty complicated with all the lines. That's why I think people shy away from Spider-Man cartoons a lot of the time, because he's full of crosshatch and I can't do it.
have you seen all the Spider-Man comics as well? Because they always draw Spider-Man far off in the distance, so it's just you
like
don't actually see. You only see is the red and the blues and stuff, or Spider-Man kind of like going around this corner.
You get these probably knackered with like a deadline coming up in like 10 like minutes, and they're like, oh, gotta finish the last page.
But with like talking about comics as well, because I know you being like the comic specialist in the store you work, though, Lauren. So you've probably seen some absolutely amazing things. So what are the best? What would you say are the best comics that you've had in your hands?
X-Men 1.
Wow. Did you feel like stealing it? Be honest.
I wouldn't have been able to. Yeah, we had X-Men 1. We had Giant Size X. We've had Giant Size X-Men. We had X-Men 94, which was like. So originally, when they rebranded X-Men and they relaunched it with Giant Size X-Men, they were going to continue with the title Giant Size, but they decided to just turn it back to X-Men, which became Uncanny X-Men. And so that picked up with issue 94. And that's the one where Count Nefero, but it's one where Thunderbird, the original Thunderbird dies. They bring this Native American guy in and they kill him in the next issue, which is great. But we had a copy of that and it was in like pristine condition.
Right.
It was like it had just been printed. It's just like that. It was mind blowing how good it is.
But did that not raise red flags as well? It's like, this is too good. This has got to be a fake.
No, it was part of a very sizable collection, so it was definitely genuine. It's really hard to answer because I've processed literally thousands and thousands of comics. It's gotten to the point where I'm just like,
you switch off. It's
like, oh well, it's just another comic. Look at this lovely Silver Age comic.
And if you're not getting to keep any of them, it's like
I process things like Hulk 180 and 181, which is first appearance of Wolverine. I've processed Death of Gwen Stacy, the first appearance of the Punisher. Like countless comics. And although I love comics and they mean a lot to me, it's like it's my job to look after them, so it's just like I mean, I do sometimes still get excited. Like we had Captain America 100 recently, which is when because back in the comic history lesson here, back in the olden days, there was like certain like stipulations about how many titles a comic company could publish. So for a while, Marvel had Tales to Astonish and Tales of Suspense, which was like a double feature issue where Tales to Astonish was like Ant-Man and the Hulk, I think, if I recall correctly. Then Tales of Suspense was Captain America and Iron Man. They weren't like having like a team up. Half of the issue would be one character, half of the issue would be the other character.
Yeah, because DC did the same. It Justice Friends or something, or not Justice Friends, or something. Yeah,
same reason, because they could only publish so many titles, which they kind of still did.
But, is this Brave and Comics Code? Is that what it was called back
then? It was the Brave and the Behold, wasn't it?
Brave and the Bold.
Yes, Brave and the Bold. That was it.
But so then they were able to. They got relaxed, which is when they came out. But Captain America 100 was technically issue 1. But it's where Tales of Suspense stopped. So Captain America continued in that kind of like line, and then Iron Man got his own issue 1.
Right. And like I say, from the conversation, the way you mentioned these comics as well, the ones that you've mentioned that you get excited, I take it you are with Sammy on the dark side of the Force, being a Marvel girl. I take it.
I think you'll find me on the light side. But okay.
Yeah, I've been Marvel pretty much like most of my life of being into this kind of thing. It started, as many people my age did, with the X-Men cartoon of the 1990s.
Marvel movie.
And obviously there was like the Spider-Man cartoon as well, and then
I love that one.
Trickling down with like the Fantastic Four and the Iron Man and the Hulk, which
Four.
they were enjoyable. I watched them. I didn't quite feel the same connect as with the
Sorry to interrupt, but you know what's funny about the Iron Man cartoon? He's got his mullet in the like, he had like a mullet in the comics for a little while.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, Tony. But yeah,
you to get the hair.
I wonder
if I could pay Jake to actually get the Tony Hawk mullet.
Oh no, I hate Tony Stark.
Cut that hair off.
But
yeah, that's kind of what started it, and then because I grew up like really, really rurally, there wasn't a comic book shop around where I come from. So when I moved to the big city of Birmingham, then I kind of there's like, oh, comics are oh shit, you know. So I started like reading comics and like going to comic book shops, and then the library in the city had the Sandman in graphic novel format, which by now game, and obviously there's the Netflix show for it now, so people are like way more familiar with it.
Yeah.
But when I was like a gothic teenager, it was kind of like.
Your Bible.
It was literally a Bible when you were like a gothic teen. It's just like the word of God.
Yeah.
Yes. Quite literally, actually. So.
Yeah.
I was pretty fortunate because my husband was the collector. He loved the X-Men cartoons, and he's been collecting since he was about 8 years old. So when I come to read comics, I had his collection to start with, and it was half and half. But I started with my first ever issue I read was Old Man Logan. And it just started from there. And my love affair with Marvel, it just keeps continuing and continuing.
That's the thing. I'll always give Marvel its... Sorry.
I was going to say, I think you'll probably have a similar experience to me, Paul, where like the move into Birmingham thing, like the first time you got to go to Newcastle and be like, oh, this is a real city with comic book shops, like you see on the TV.
It was different. Like Newcastle was like I used to go to, but because the comic book shops were always kind of like hidden away. We didn't have Travel Man till like say only a few years ago, but like the shops that were there, they had the toys and everything at the front of the store, but the comics were always at the back.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like the dirty area. So, and I'll be honest, like the store in Newcastle, it smelt like teenage boys had ejaculated in their bedrooms, like constantly. It was just the most vile smelling place to ever go to.
Comic books can be scary.
Yeah. So, but when I've always liked comics, but I used to get them like ordered in or go to the local shop and get the shitty ones with the plastic covers rather than like say, buy the graphic novels. The first time I experienced actual amazing, like the old style comics, like the paper, like the issues, was when I started going to Manchester and like say going to places like Affleck's Palace that had its own like little comic book area, going to like the stores there where the comic books were like at the front or like shown in a different light. And then I took a trip to Canada once and went into a comic book store in Canada and just had my head blown off with all these amazing old school covers. They had a amazing Spider-Man #1 on the wall in a like bulletproof glass frame where I was just looking at and like seeing these colors. And I know we've got a movie coming out in a few months, the Spider-Verse, and seeing the artwork for the Spider-Verse, and that reminded us so much of how the old comics look with the bleed and how they used to do the backgrounds and how the print run didn't quite always line up. Yeah. So that just like, say, I know I'm jumping from subject to subject here, sorry, but that kind of like nostalgia like hit us big style. But like I always loved like, because I like ones we could get when we were kids, you could never get like the hard to get ones. It was always Batman, or Spider-Man, or the X-Men. I was always drawn to the Batman ones. And this might be just my personal opinion. I always think Marvel comics earlier on had a lot of stuff right, and now it's a bit of a mess to try and read them.
Massively.
Where Batman and like say DC, if you discount Superman because you can't get into Superman as much because he's too powerful. It's hard to be empathize with someone who's just all powerful and fair enough, he's scared of magic, but fuck magic. Well, if we thought about Satana, that's a different subject, but yeah. But if we go like say to say from the 80s to even say to now, I know I've had some rough edge, Batman comics has been on point, on sturdy, story-wise. It's never really faltered. Fair enough. And some of the writers, I know, the Kickstart the universe, I'll die on the hill. Like, people slag off the new 52 run, but that Batman run was one of the best stories. I really like that. The Court of Owls was just magic to read, and probably some of the best stories, I think. And then if you go back to like the Frank Miller Batmans, like the Dark Knight Returns and stuff, never been touched for storytelling, in my view. Again, that's just my opinion, and like say certain things. And the greatest comic ever wrote was, to me, like The Long Halloween, which
I've read.
Yes, and again, gutted about, because I had individually each comic and had a sell due to financial issues. But it's one of them things. I will own them comics again one day, because they are beautiful covers. And even going back to like independent ones as well, like not independent, but like they were offshoots, like the Watchmen comics. Like, I know I talked about V for Vendetta comics, like absolutely old style paper, like even like the paper covers and stuff are just like beautiful to touch and just run your fingers across. That's where my passion kind of comes from, like say that type of element there.
I totally agree with you. As much as I am a Marvel fangirl, Marvel, when it comes to their issues currently, are a mess. They're all over. They have been for a very long time. I think the last one that I was heavily involved in, because I was covering the whole event, with Secret Wars back in 2015. And after that, it was just, right, we're going to go back to issue number 1 again. Yeah. And then next year we're going to go for exactly the same. And it just got too much, to the point where I was like, I'm done. I actually, at the moment, only buy Batman comics. When it comes to actually going out to look for them, I'm looking for the Batman ones. I've got The Long Halloween recently, which I just absolutely loved it. There's a few more that I've got. There's quite a few I've got, actually, but I do agree with you. I remember one New Year, when was it, 2015? Possibly 2015.
Just to stop you there for a little bit, Sam. Are you having to run off to feed the cats now, Lauren? I've just saw you looking.
That's okay.
That's fine. We'll pop back and grab your thing. So this will be the moment when Lauren disappears, and you'll see some nice images of comics flashing up things. So like the magic of pre-recorded. Woo! But yeah, sorry to interrupt the story. I could see you just looking to get off there.
I'm sorry, I was just on one, and I wasn't paying attention. But no, the 2015, I think I spent New Year's Eve into New Year's Day reading Gail Simone's Batgirl. I literally could not stop reading it. You could tell when Gail got sacked in the middle of that run. And then when she came back, you could clearly tell she was back. But I've never been able to capture how I felt reading that whole entire run in literally one sitting, because it was absolutely magical. I loved every second of it. I really want to own them comics as well.
Yeah, I think that's how I've always tried to consume comics. Like, it hasn't worked out for me when I've tried to do week to week or
me
week,
neither.
They come out.
I fall off so easy.
But I do love sitting down with a storyline, and like some of them don't end, but some of them do have an end, and you're like, okay, I get to here, and I could continue if I want, or I could jump off. Because the last one I absolutely loved was like the Superior Spider-Man. That was like the last, probably the most recent Marvel that I really loved. And I hadn't even been reading Modern Spider-Man, but I managed to pick up because obviously Peter's kind of different. He's got a job at a science company and everything. He's successful, and he's rich, I guess you could say, in by Marvel standpoints. But I just love that. It's such an inventive storyline that I'm surprised I haven't quickly tried to rip off in a movie too soon. I suppose hopefully they might be able to build up to it.
They will do one day.
Yeah.
Oh, that.
But I've also felt the sting of the big event that spreads everything out too far, and then I lose track. I was following the New 52 up to a point, but it was when they brought the Joker back, and that just kind of splintered everything too much. And I was like, I can't afford to buy Nightwing comics now.
No,
out. And like I'm already reading Animal Man and Swamp Thing just because I like Swamp Thing. I don't really like Animal Man, but the crossover, the storylines with like the world of Rot and everything.
But yeah, that's always like I think that's where comics like say are clever, but they do get very greedy with certain things. Especially like if you're reading the Monday ones and you finish it like on one page and says to follow on this story arc by Batgirl issue 71 or something.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of that on Batman. It's like if you want to know about this story, find it on here, and I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
But that's where the graphic novels are like say to me, like the trade backs are better because they pick up them arcs and add them all into like the woven story. Ones I did with the two like ones was War Games with the Batman. Don't try and get the run. There's about 72 comics. I think it's in the loft where it includes like you've got to get Catwoman issues and stuff like that because it's basically a war in Gotham and basically all the different sides of like playing against each other. You've got facing off against Two-Face, Bane. You've got Huntress in it. You've got it's a Black Mask. It's the one where my favorite Robin, I can't remember her name, Stephanie dies.
All right.
But then again, and a similar type of like comics is No Man's Land. That just went off on so many different tangents and so many different variations. But again, if you buy the trade back, you can probably get like issues like with that, like 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5. It is a good storyline, and it feels very much like a lot of the Chris Nolan Batman movies as well, with like the TikTok parts of it. But it's interesting learning about the different Bat universe or the Bat family and stuff like that. But as Lauren said earlier, that there is going to be an explosion or a meltdown, even if you see it that way, with how comics are going to go or kind of lose type thing because it's oversaturated. They keep trying to bring out these new issues or new characters that kind of drift off after a certain run.
That's such a shame. I was just going back to like big ones. The biggest one I've ever done run-wise was Civil War. We had them digitally, and we had the main story, which is only 6 issues, but we had every single tie-in, and I read it all in its entirety.
Because luckily on Marvel Unlimited, you could just be like, I'm going to pick Civil War, and then it would just have like a massive list of every comic at the time. And
everyone.
It was interesting to do that, but I would have hated it if I had to pay for like whatever whatever Speedball was a part of, or whatever X-Men team that was.
But yeah, I've done it with Civil War and I was like, I set myself a challenge. I was like, I'm going to do this.
But by the end of it, I felt like that was it was a good use of time at the end, because I felt like, right, okay, now I understand why everyone was here, what the motivations were, because it is a complicated story. It's not one. I mean, they kind of dumbed it down for the movie, but like in the comics, you had a lot of time for the characters to like question their allegiances. Because I guess they had their own book to do it.
Yeah, there was so much more riding on things as well. It wasn't like how the film depicted it. I still, to this day, love Frank Castle and Captain America getting into it. I absolutely love them scenes.
But then you find out like Cap's like the only one Frank kind of respects in the end, because he was like his favorite hero as a kid type of thing.
I absolutely loved it. I always thought me Everest, because for some reason, and it's not the biggest of books, but I could never seem to finish it, was Infinity Gauntlet.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It's just many different, it's a hard read. It is crazy.
It's crazy because it's tiny writing, smaller panels, and it's all like there's a lot.
There was a lot of LSD consumed in that
massively,
comic,
especially when you get to the end.
Yes,
but when I read it, and I cried when I finished, because I was like, I've not only have I done it, like I've finally finished it, but it was so I didn't want to leave. Like I was so engrossed in it.
I know the feeling. Like and that's like, I was hoping for that for Endgame. Like I was like, oh come on, they've got to do the part where Cap punches him in the face. Like they have to do it. Yeah, because like that was my favorite part.
Well, that'd be amazing.
It's not about that, is it? Because it's like, okay, he's like the human, he's like the best of us, like the best human, and he knows he's gonna die, but he walks up there and does it anyway because that's kind of like that's who he is. He's like a symbol. He's like, you know,
I can still remember the line in the comic as well. I'll probably not get it nailed on, but it's like, as long as one of us stands up to you, you'll never truly win, or you'll always lose, type thing. And then Thanos just like, smirks and just puts his hand on his neck and just goes crunch.
Yeah,
it's very similar to what Loki said to him in the film. Like, not in them very words, but he does say, "You'll never truly be a god," and he snaps his neck.
Yeah, they sort of did it early, didn't they, with Loki in that scene where he's like, you know, as long as one person's standing up to you, and that old man's like, yeah.
That's just back. How's the cats though, Lauren? Were they okay?
They're fine. they'll pretend they haven't eaten anything in about half an hour's time, but
yeah, it's the way the world
goes. Problem.
Like, we were just talking about Infinity Gauntlet. Like Sammy was saying, that was the first like big story arc that she read. That like it was kind of like a Everest type thing.
Yeah, it was. It's because like every time I picked it up, I'd be like, "This is just too overwhelming." Like. I'm
Look at this giant space for 2 pages.
Yeah, it was like, that's a lot. But then, and I always kept putting it down. But the day I decided, that's it, I'm doing it, I'm reading it. And now I've got a new one, which is, oh God, what is it? It's we're getting the films this year and the TV shows. Come on, help us out.
Secret War.
Secret Invasion.
Secret Invasion's
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
That was out when I was in uni.
Yeah, that's the one.
Well, there's issues somewhere. I should reread them.
Secret Invasion, I never bought on it. It was like, oh yeah, all your big heroes, they're secretly being Skrulls. It's like, no, that's just another cop out. You know, Secret Wars. The Secret Wars, like I said, that's what I'm excited about, because if they do stay close to the comics for that one, like in the movie wise, it's going to be batshit mental. Think about like every single good guy against every single bad guy, just in a war. But there's talks like every single character that's ever been in a Marvel universe being brought back to be shown on the screen in some little element.
I don't think that's right, because if you go back to the very first Secret War, it was like a hand-picked bunch of the heroes. It wasn't all the heroes, it was just a select few. So yeah, they should definitely make it the select few to not get fatigue.
To work, they've got to do Doom. They have to. They can't.
Yeah, that could be just spitballing. That could be how they introduce Doom. That could be how they introduce the X-Men, because they were in the original Secret. There's a couple of characters from like the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. They were in Secret War.
It's interesting you're saying that though as well. Yeah, because when Secret War due to come out, I know. This is comic book. We're talking about movies now, but it's interesting because
it kind of crosses over a little bit.
Yeah, I know because the reason why we haven't had X-Men yet is because Marvel, when they signed the contract over with Fox, they said they weren't allowed to make it till 2026. So that's why they can hint, but they've not had the X-Men, and that's why they've not really made any announcements. But I know Fantastic Four's before Secret Wars, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, it is. And I kind of wait.
I'm interested to see who they cast.
I heard a rumor the other day that, and this really, I couldn't stop laughing when I read the name out. The first one being Reed Richards, because they're saying that John Krasinski is a multiverse version of Reed Richards, which I just thought was bullshit.
I think didn't the director say like, oh well, we kind of like didn't like him in the end, but the fans wanted him, so we did it, and that was it.
Pretty much, yeah.
If that's all I get from it, then I'm fine with it, because I was pushing for that for ages.
That was your fault.
I heard oh God, who what's his name? Oh my God,
Adam Driver.
Adam Driver. Yeah, which I thought, okay,
the sexy man beast.
I would rather see him as Doom, but all right.
Better Doom.
Yeah. It's Sarah Jessica Parker. It's Sue Storm.
No, I think that's just a piss.
I was wetting myself.
See, I heard Mila Kunis.
Yeah,
I saw that as well.
Oh,
but also,
I don't know if I believe it, but
I've said this a million times. The Always Sunny cast is perfect.
Yes, I
totally need to be so as Doom.
Yeah, and I don't want to get people to like jump on and say they're anti-woke or being woke and stuff like that. I did hear a rumor that they're thinking of casting a female for Ben Grimm. which
Oh.
doesn't.
Oh, I saw that too.
And
Yeah.
again, I don't want to sound negative or like, I know if it works, it works. But for that character, and because I don't know if a female role would work with Ben Grimm, just because he's like, with him being such a tortured soul, like always being a man's man, or to be like, because he is typical, like I say, a 1950s like guy from Brooklyn, just like, it's clobbering time and stuff like that.
Like
Yeah,
I'll tell you like the one thing that I really like about the thing, like obviously the whole like, you know, my appearance has changed, I can't be a human anymore. That stuff is like interesting, but I really like when he goes back to like his old community and like everyone's like, "Yo, Ben," you know, like that kind of thing. And he's like the hero of the like
the common folk type thing. Yeah,
like as long as they get some of that in the character, like then fine, you can recast it.
Like I would never be bothered if they did recast it and Ben became was
it's
a
just
female
about like
based,
attitude, isn't it? You know?
But I really want to see if the first time, because I don't class that Fantastic Four, what was out years ago, as I just
Michael
don't.
Chiklis?
I want to see Marvel's version.
We had Cap as the Human Torch. What do you want?
I know, but I want to see Marvel's like first family in a Marvel movie as it was printed.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's been like a legacy kind of. I'm not gonna lie, I've not read it, but I'm aware there was a female character who was like had like the Ben Grimm look / costume in like the Michael Allred version of the Fantastic Four. Like she wasn't Ben, she was like her own character. So it's fine to have legacy characters. It's fine to have other characters. Like you don't always need to it's one thing to like tweak somebody's history and deepen somebody's history.
Yeah.
But it's another thing to just like completely change it, because it just makes somebody there's many instances where you can just like make somebody new. You don't have to like
if there's a reason or a purpose for it, then it's a thing. But just to have it to say, we've got a female thing, like
because it's being very disingenuous to trying to tap into this new audience anyway, because it's just like you're not really like responding to what this new audience actually wants to see.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
That's 100%. The thing as well, because I think they are being very careful with the Fantastic Four because of the history in the comics, because not many people do realize this, but some of the Marvel Comics best comic runs is with the Fantastic Four. It blows anything that Spider-Man done, and that hurts me to say it. Even Daredevil, like I say, Daredevil is one of the best characters Marvel has ever produced. The Fantastic Four early comics were just wonderful reads. Like if anyone wants to start off and read like Marvel from like good Marvel, shall we say, go back and even not like the original comics because you can't afford them. Find the graphic novels, find a different reprint, or even find a digital copy. They are amazing comics to read. And like say as people laugh at Galactus because of the movies, like he's just a fucking cloud. He was not a fucking cloud in the comics. No, he was fucking monstrous.
With the early Fantastic Four, like so many characters either first appeared in there or were reintroduced, because obviously there's a whole bulk of Marvel characters that existed pre-Marvel. So like when it's back in like the timely kind of days. But then Fantastic Four kind of like either introduced new characters, like Black Panther had his first appearance in Fantastic Four. Or characters like Namor, who existed before.
Fought Spider-Man as well, didn't it? In Spider-Man's early run, he accidentally like ran afoul of them to try to get him.
But, then like other characters were kind of like rolled into the new kind of Marvel so to speak. Like Namor was brought in because he existed in like the pre-60s comics back in like the wartime like propaganda comics, which you know, in like the first Avengers, where he's on that War Bonds tour. That was basically what his comic was. Back in the 40s, it was to sell war bonds, and
I love that little montage.
Yeah, me too.
It's fantastic, but it is a real.
I've got the song in my head now.
It's a Star-Spangled Man with a Plan.
I know they've changed it now. It's I Can Do This All Day is this song now, but I like the Star-Spangled Man.
So so talking about like Free Comic Book Day as well, because I know there has been like certain events in the past, and I've not really heard much going for like now. Does anyone know of anything like because I thought in the past I've had, like as you said, comic book artists in the stores signing stuff as well. I know a few years ago I was gutted. There was a special Free Comic Books Day Funko with Constantine, which I missed out on. I was very, very annoyed about. That's a very expensive Funko Pop now, the bastards.
My God. I have been so unfortunate in my time of reading comics that any Free Comic Book Day, I've always been working it. And the one Saturday that I am not working it is my my nephew's 18th birthday. Happy birthday, Lukey. But I can't attend. So I've never looked at what is actually going on, because then I have to remind myself I can't actually go.
Yeah. And I mean, it is always very store dependent. It is very dependent on what people can facilitate.
Yeah.
And obviously it happening in May, it can overlap slightly with con season. It can, like, obviously writers and artists have got constraints, like they might be doing other things or going other places. So
yeah,
and
nobody give a fuck about the coronation this weekend. It's Free Comic Book Day.
Some stores like have got their own like things that they're running, like maybe like an art competition or a cosplay competition kind of thing. So
yeah,
but there's not like an overarching theme of what you should do.
Yeah, no. Some places go, like the stores in America go absolutely batshit insane. They'll be like complete like you know, tabletop sales like in their parking lots, and you know, they'll like sell comics for days, and it depends on what a store can invest in their time to produce, really. So
but yeah, like I think Paul, you were saying like if there was going to be the start of a new event, and I was checking a bit of reading here, it does look like they're starting some kind of DC Night Terrors new thing event on Free Comic Book Day, which I'm sure will be interesting. That's apparently bringing back Dead Man and a new villain called Insomnia. I don't know about any of those guys.
So with you reading in the know, Lauren, as well, is there any ones that we should keep an eye out for this weekend, or?
I don't.
Oh, we're throwing you under the bus now. Sorry.
Let's have a look at the list again. Let me give my
Sweet Valley Twins. Hook yeah.
Oh yeah. There's the new Conan book, because obviously Conan's a trip. I say so. Conan recently had been at Marvel for quite a couple years, having been before at Dark Horse, having been before at Marvel, but now Marvel, the rights gone over to Titan.
Yeah.
A very, very strange company for it to jump to, but there's going to be the relaunch of Conan going into Titan, which we'll see how that goes. And I
was never a big Conan fan, I'll be honest. I know,
but some people like the classics. Some people do, but are real Star Wars, the classics. Like I mentioned earlier, there's the Uncanny Avengers book. There's a new Amazing Spider-Man event. There's, as was mentioned, the DC with Dead Man coming back. There is a Star Trek.
Yep.
Yes,
Star Trek one.
I did see the Star Trek one. I did share it with Goodwill. See if you got excited about it.
Oh, there's an Archie Horror title.
Yes, there is.
Love Archie Horror.
Oh, we'll send it to Holly to sign.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an Umbrella Academy book as well.
It's the Umbrella Academy / The Witcher.
Yeah.
I am intrigued.
Well, no, it will just be half of it will be the Umbrella Academy, half it will be The Witcher.
I am now no longer intrigued.
Sometimes they'll just double up a book.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it.
Just to make printing / getting it to the retailers are slightly cheaper.
I mean, Geralt is known for randomly teleporting into other universes, because he's ended up in the Monster Hunter games randomly, so it could happen.
It could. But yeah, it'll just be that. What's next?
The only thing I'm surprised about as well, and again, it might be something to do with rights, or it might be something to think now with Marvel basically owning like all the like the Fox properties, like the Alien properties, the Terminator, Terminator, and like say them type of rights. We've not seen any crossover with the Marvel universe as much, because when DC had it like the rights, we got Batman versus Judge Dredd, Batman versus Predator, Batman versus Alien.
I think it'll come. They crossed Conan when they had Conan. They crossed Conan into the main lore, and they had Conan in Savage Avengers, and he met different people. So it will come. It will come. They're just probably developing it.
I've just noticed on this whole list there is not one DC comic.
There will be.
There's not one.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. There's a girl taking over a Lois Lane story.
Yeah,
Clark and Lex.
Don't see any, and it's Marvel.
Is it just not on this one?
No, it's not on this list.
It's probably also on the different pet one sec.
Yeah, but Paul, you'll be excited to know that the Turtles comic is very much like 80s cartoon branded. Like that's the artwork on the front.
I know. The thing is, what made us a bit sad about the Turtle comics the later years, they just went, we'll just cross over the Turtles with anyone. That Turtles crossed over with Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
That Turtles crossed over with Batman.
Is that the one where you get, obviously that's where you get the panel where he's like, Michelangelo, this is where my parents died.
It's like,
this is where I come to cry.
He's like, pizza dude, excuse everything.
Yeah, no, DC has got 5 free titles.
I wonder why
I might have to send you a different list. Yeah, I'll send you this list when we're done. But there's they've kind of done a mix. There's the Dawn of DC, the Night Terrors title, which is the Dead Man thing. The We Are Legends, which looks to be some younger characters. A Dawn of DC Primer, which will kind of probably explain the lay of DC land right now. And then Clark and Lex, which looks like DC are doing a very good range of like original graphic novels aimed at like young adult and younger readers. They're in different, I can't for the life of me remember what they're called. But there's like one's for like little kids and one's for like slightly older teenagers.
Right.
And some of them will be slightly out of context. They won't be like exactly canon. They won't be exactly history, but it's just a self-contained little story about a version of
that's fine. I love
a version of Batman. There's a Constantine one.
Yeah,
but they're quite good. They're not like scrimped on like doing quality. They're still like very kind of compelling reads. It's still very interesting, but it's less hardcore than going in for like, you want to read about Batman.
Where do you start?
But to be fair, Jim Lee's in charge of DC at the moment, isn't he? So if anyone that like is going to be like, because his run on the Batman issues, like say the Hush and stuff like that, was just phenomenal. If anyone knows what to do with comics or how to get people engrossed, I'm very happy that, like say, Jim Lee, and as I said before, I know being a DC fan, the DC comics like run recently hasn't been as disappointing to read. I know that doesn't give it a seal of approval, but I didn't mind the latest. Was it Doomsday Clock run with the crossover with the Watchmen characters and the Batman characters, where it was basically the rebirth basically happened because Dr. Manhattan got bored basically. But that was quite an interesting thing, and I love the whole like say I can't remember his name now, but was it Matt Miller? No, it wasn't Matt Miller. Run of the Batman like story arc, because it was very like romanticized, and like a lot of people criticized that, but it was based on like his relationship with Catwoman. That was done really well. And if it go back to classic characters and not looking to do like something new, or not something new, like a new character, like just for a new character's sake. Yeah, a decent storyline and stuff that people do engrossed. But just to throw Lauren on the bus a little bit here. With you being the comic book expert, and we do like doing top 5s here.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Oh no.
Because we've already did it because we've done a previous episode on our top 5 comic books. Okay. So I know I haven't prepared you for this, but this is just top of the head stuff thing. So don't worry, we're not live, so it's not going to be like say anything. So your top 5 comic books you would recommend?
Oh, okay. To who? Who am I?
to anybody.
Shit,
So
okay. Okay, I'm going to preface this with comic book tastes are very subjective.
yes.
Oh yeah.
Just because you
Well,
like...
let's just go your top 5 favorites. We'll make it easy.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
Sorry, I overcomplicated that.
Do you mean titles or story arcs?
We'll go with story arcs.
Okay.
I mean, I can vamp for a bit if you need some time to think.
No, it's fine. I just might meander quite.
I just want to say read Invincible, everybody. That's my recommendation.
I got the what they're called, where it's like the big
Omnibus?
one.
Yeah.
Compendiums.
Compendium. I got
yes.
compendium
Yeah.
number 1 for
Yeah,
that.
Wow.
the image compendiums aren't to be confused with the omnibuses, because omnibuses tend to be big, thick hardbacks, whereas the compendiums are just like the yellow pages.
Ah,
They're just
see,
hardbacks.
dropping the facts of knowledge.
Don't order
Anyway.
the wrong thing.
I know the Sandman one is very expensive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, The Sandman is probably one of my favorite comics of all time because it was very formative in my tastes. I think I read it at quite a good age, but I didn't appreciate all of it as a 15-year-old.
No.
But then I went back and reread it in my 20s. I did find a new love and a new appreciation for certain aspects of the story arc. Like I remember really struggling with the Kindly Ones story arc of The Sandman when I was a kid, because the art in that one is very, very different, and it's quite a long story arc. It's quite heavy. You kind of have to be kind of like paying attention to all the callbacks and all the different kind of the stuff that Morpheus has done over the series, and the terrible choices this trash person has made kind of like resolve into. So I think at that point as well, I wasn't quite ready to kind of accept a story that had a definite end, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because although, and this spoilers for anybody who's not read it and is watching the Netflix show, it doesn't kind of end, because like obviously Daniel comes out at the end and there's that new version of Dream and he still exists and he does still pop up in the DCU sometimes. But the story kind of had an end, and it wasn't like an infinite ongoing going comic, and I wasn't quite ready to accept a comic that ended.
He wasn't expecting a full stop.
Yeah, it was like, oh, what? No, they just keep going. So yeah, but Sandman is one. Then one of my favorite X-Men stories it's an original graphic novel. It's called God Loves, Man Kills. And when people say like, oh, you know, Marvel's so light and fluffy, and just like, read God Loves, Man Kills, where it starts with a couple of children who have been like strung up from a playground like climbing frame with Muti carved into their chests.
Oh no.
Jesus.
This is the one where people reference about, I don't know if you've seen the meme about, you know, Mike Pence looks like he's about to outlaw the X-Men.
Yeah.
This is the comic that was very loosely the basis for like X2 and like some of the early X-Men films, where they were going hard against mutants, and Reverend Stryker as the character, he's a religious zealot extremist in the comics. Probably why they didn't change him into a military man in the film.
Yes, because it makes more sense to blame the military.
America probably wouldn't accept the evangelical guy being evil one.
I couldn't see it.
But yeah, so it's the X-Men trying to kind of combat that kind of hatred. And there's like one point where like Stryker's looking like, look at that guy, like at Nightcrawler. I'm like, he's so evil, he's horrible, how can he be human, kind of thing, because it's this blue fuzzy dude. And it's just like, well, actually Nightcrawler's the
most nicest guy you'll ever meet.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, it's good. It's dark, it's very dark, but it's just a really kind of good example of like the X-Men kind of like being at the forefront of, it's not just like robots and evil mutants and, you know, Sabretooth and Magneto. It's like there's just as much a threat from people who don't accept or understand somebody just because of the way they look. So that one's quite key. One of my favorite comics is, to step away from like the big two, is I Hate Fairyland.
Right.
I've tried so much.
I love I Hate Fairyland.
I think it's one of Carolyn's favorites.
Yeah, it's by a creator called Scotty Young, who is very famous in the realm of Marvel as well.
His drawings of they're adorable.
The baby Marvel.
Scotty Young, but it's adorable.
Famous. Yeah, he did a lot of like Wizard of Oz comics. He's done a lot of like Wizard of Oz stories for Marvel, but he also did the baby, but he's done like baby variants of like the different.
That's the ones.
Like,
it's
X-Men
so
and Avengers, and he's done like baby versions of like pretty much everybody. And I have so many, so many of these variants. But he also did a couple. He's done a couple of his own kind of creator-owned comics. Predominantly Image, who are a fantastic company.
Oh, yeah.
And I Hate Fairyland is about a girl called Gert who gets sucked off to Fairyland. Sucked off? Whoops.
She did. That's a good job, Grant's not here.
She gets whisked off to Fairyland when she's a kid. And the whole premise is these kids go to Fairyland. They get this little helper, like a little Jiminy Cricket type thing. And they go on a little adventure to find the magic key, and then they go home. Only Guts is terrible at this.
Yeah,
she can't find the key, so she can't leave. Like that dems the rules. You got to find the key, you can't leave. So she is stuck there for 30 years.
Oh dear.
Her body doesn't age. Her mind does. She just like loses the fucking plot. So she's just like going around murdering all these cute little, fuzzy Fairyland citizens, blowing shit up. And then her little helper.
Sounds a lot like Goodwill now.
Yeah, I've forgotten his name, but her little helper he can't leave her. Like he's bound to like stay with her and help her. But Larry, that's it. Larry he's like a cricket or a firefly or something. But he's just like he just wants to kill himself because he's just had enough. He's had enough of this like terrorist. So yeah, that's fantastic. And she kind of gets home, but then there is a new kind of story where she has to go back as an adult kind of thing. But yeah, it's fantastic. I've been really, really enjoying it. That's 3.
Yeah.
Die. Die is
so good.
Die is another Image title. I will just explain about Image for anybody who doesn't know. Basically, back in the 90s, a whole bunch of comic artists and writers decided they wanted to make more money and not be set under the thumb of the big two. Like they wanted to get paid what they were like fairly owed. So
and these were fucking some big names as well.
Yeah, these are massive names like McFarlane with Spawn. Spawn is still going. Spawn really kind of launched Image, and Spawn is still going.
Yeah,
Jim Lee was one of them.
Yeah, Jim Lee, and they wanted to like own their own shit basically. So Image is a bunch of. It's like instead of like 100 comics taking place in the same world, it's 100 comics taking place in 100 worlds. There's stuff in the Image titles that are for like kids, there's stuff that are for adults, there's stuff for teenagers. Invincible is another one. Walking Dead is an Image title. Even if you've not heard of Image, you will have heard of a property of Image.
Yeah, there is there is a really good documentary called The Image Revolution, which really just goes from start to finish and just shows how they even managed to nearly fuck it all up.
Yeah,
yes, because with anything, these have got some egos on them as well. Because I said with the big names, and if anyone's ever like seen any live videos of Seth MacFarlane, wow. Todd's McFarlane, sorry. Yeah.
Rob Liefeld does one of the greatest impressions of him, and we all have opinions on Rob Liefeld, but he was part of that crew. And these people, these were superstars. Like these were like mega stars when Image blew up, and they still managed. I mean, they've managed to pull it round, and it is probably one of the best publishers out there. It has some of my favorite titles that runs through. But Die is when I found Die, because obviously the writer is Kieran Gillen.
Yeah.
I was in from start to finish. Like Wicked and Divine is one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. And this was, he gets it, doesn't he?
Guy is a phenomenal comic. It's basically starts off with these kids in the early 90s. They meet to play a game, a Dungeons and Dragons type game.
Jake, you would love this.
Yeah.
It's already sounded interesting.
One of them is written because it's another member of the group's birthday. So to celebrate his birthday, they're going to play this game. And each of them, they only have one die out of the polyhedral set. And so they, depending on what class they're given, they have a die. And then they get sucked into this other world. And then they're missing. But time passes in the comic, in like this very first issue, where they're just gone, then they come back. One of them's got an arm off. One of them's not there anymore. But they won't talk about where they've been or what happened to them.
Yeah,
but they become kind of infamous.
Mystery.
Yeah, they become very infamous in like their local kind of like community because of this mystery and of this guy that's missing and didn't come back. But then it kind of phases into the future where they're all adults now in a kind of It type setting where they kind of reunite, talk, and then they get sucked back into the game because the die shows up that took them there in the first place.
Jumanji.
Yeah, it's kind of like Jumanji, Narnia, It. There's so many disparate, but because it was like this fantasy world written by a teenager, there are callbacks to like what people consumed as a teenager, as a fantasy nerd, as a teenager. Like this one, the world that really stuck with me was like the World War One / Hobbit world.
Yeah,
where like there's this little world, this kind of fantasy world has got these like kind of like pocket countries, and one of them, it's just these hobbits perpetually dying in the trenches of World War One.
Yeah.
And it's so sad. It's just like so heartbreaking. But it's
so good.
It's a real
Jake, you would love it.
Well, that does sound really interesting, especially the part where you were saying it's more like it starts off without showing you the fantasy world and kind of just more like the aftermath.
You don't know what happened to them.
No.
Yeah.
Through them going back to the world as an adult, you get flashbacks of what happened to them, and they kind of have to reconcile that past with their future. Really cool. And I don't want to spoil some of what happens.
No, don't.
I really would love Jake to read it because it just
4 or 5 story arcs.
Yeah.
By Kieran Gillen and Stephanie Hans, who her art is beautiful.
His writing is phenomenal.
Yeah,
if you are interested in Kieran Gillen, Wicked and Divine is such a good read.
He is one of like the best British artists, best British writers of our generation.
Yeah,
a writer can be an artist too, so it's fine.
I mean, he is an artiste. He is very good.
Yes.
Then for my 5th, I don't know. I think I'll have to go. I think I'll have to go with Captain Britain.
Really? I've never enjoyed Captain Britain as a character, but
have you read the UK published Captain Britain stuff though?
No, I think I was just like the American side where it's like, I'm a Captain America light.
Yeah, see, the problem with the American writers is they turn him into a twat because they don't
get him.
They don't get him. But back in the 80s, Chris Claremont invented him back in the 70s with Herb Trimpe.
I didn't know that.
And then in the 80s, a whole bunch of like kind of like the flip-flop between like Alan Moore and Alan Davies did some as well.
Right.
And it goes crazy. There's a lot of like mystic lore, and like Captain Britain was one of like the kind of very early grounding points for like the multiverse kind of aspects, because there's the Captain Britain Corps, and
he wasn't a Nexus being, was he?
But basically, because there was all these different worlds, but each world had a Captain Britain, and they would all kind of like meet up in Otherworld.
Yeah.
Where they would commune, and you know, if any dangers threatened all of them, they would be able to meet in the Starlit Citadel. And so that's kind of what, there's so much that comes from like that little bit of pocket that you
that
don't
we've got
realize.
from now type thing. Yeah,
But yeah, early magic and mystery as well. Very. I'm being very general with it, but
no, it's
no
one of them things.
Run.
Yeah,
but it's also kind of where the character Psylocke, as in Betsy Braddock, came about because her first appearance was in the early Captain Britain, the UK published run, until she kind of got flipped into X-Men by Chris Claremont, who invented her in like New Mutants Annual 2.
Yeah,
when she got introduced, because her history is horrific. Trying to go down this road.
I think I did some reading when she was in one of the movies, because I was like, "Who is Psylocke?" She wasn't in the comic.
Where was I at that point?
Yeah,
but yeah, so she is Captain Britain's twin.
Right.
So at one point in this Captain Britain run in the UK comics, he got replaced by a Nazi version of himself, who then tried to assault her. So she killed him. Bear in mind, this is her own twin brother, even if he did come from a different multiverse. So because Captain Britain, the normal one, is still missing, the kind of like strike, which you might know from the films, actually used to be the UK version of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right, yes.
The Strike was originally the British S.H.I.E.L.D. So Strike like, hey, or was it RCX at that point? They've changed so many times. It was Strike, then went RCX.
The government body who you think they're good guys, but they're the twats.
Yeah.
But yes.
I think it was RCX at this point. It was either RCX or Who. Anyway, they were like, hey, we're going to just like, you know that Captain Britain Nazi dude who you killed because he tried to, you know, have unnatural relations with you? Here's his suit. We fitted it so you can wear it. So you can be Captain Britain. So they made her be Captain Britain, only her eyes got ripped out by Slaymaster, who is like one of the main Captain Britain villains. Which is kind of
Jesus.
Yeah.
She's like, I love this.
Where can I read this?
I've read the Wikipedia page before. That's why I'm laughing.
But that's how she kind of ends up in the X-Men American comics, because she was like convalescing in the Alps, because everybody would need a holiday to recover after that.
Didn't they at some point change body into like a different
that's coming
body?
up. That's not happened yet.
Okay.
But yeah, so she was like recovering, only she got kidnapped by Spiral, who works for Mojo, who has this.
Is this Mojo Jojo who was in the Powerpuff Girls as well, or is that completely different now?
No, Mojo. Please go Google Mojo.
I was going to say, do you not know? Is he not the one who like does like intergalactic TV shows in the X-Men?
Yes. No. I could, if I'm ever going to make a Powerpuff Girl joke, it's going to happen. So.
I hope they introduce Mojo into the films.
But he could do the Secret Wars. That's what I was thinking.
You're broadcasting.
To be fair, if they've got Kang the way they've done, like that in Ant-Man and Wasp, and
they're not bothered anymore, are they?
No, they're just well, they're not very particular, because I was sure like he was going to get brought in, but I thought he was going to be the guy who was who turned into the computer in Winter Soldier. I thought that was going to be the
Zola.
Yeah, so I thought Zola was going to turn into Kang at certain points, but yeah, they went left field with that. I wasn't complaining, but it was definitely a choice. But yes, Captain Britain, sorry.
That's so
we're on Psylocke now.
Yeah. So she got kidnapped and her eyes got replaced. She didn't have eyes at that point. So Mojo put little cameras in.
You need eyes.
Yeah.
You definitely need eyes.
Cameras. So she was like peeping on the X-Men when she lived with them. And then she got body swapped. And then that just became a whole thing. They did it recently, but they kept her because she got swapped with somebody called Quanon, who then, while she was in Betsy's English body, Quanon died of the legacy virus.
Oh no!
Yeah, but then they resurrected, they brought her back anyway. But then they swapped back, and now Quanon is still calling herself Psylocke and wearing exactly the same costume because that ninja butt floss is so sexy.
Yeah,
can't deny the fanboys.
As the X-Men cartoon found out that, like I said, there was X-Men and their characters were drawn a certain way.
I almost used that picture.
She had a very nice. Rogue was always drawn the best way, yes. But yeah, so like I say, I know we've talked quite a lot, and thank you for doing your top 5, even though we didn't prepare you. That was, like I say, quite an impressive feat, so well done there, Lauren. So going forward, because I know you said you're not really reading much comics at the moment, so what are you actually reading right now? Because I know I've mentioned that I'm reading the Walking Dead, like I say, the colour version now, which is an experience.
I think I'm kind of at that point in trying to be a mature fan where I'm compartmentalizing. So I'm just like, right, look, I'm not enjoying it right now. I'm just gonna, but I have enjoyed so much in the past, that I can accept
revisit.
So much. It'll get better at some point. So I can pick it back up when it's more to my tastes, and that's absolutely fine.
How I read at the minute.
I am reading. Sorry,
no, I was going to say you
reading...
did. Yeah.
Sorry, Karen.
no, I was going to say, because you did mention one earlier, and I think if anyone wants to get into comics and doesn't want to go on the DC or the Marvel fanboy, Spawn is the perfect foil. It's very adult in themes.
Anything from Image.
But I'd say I adored Spawn when I was a kid. But sorry to interrupt there. So what are you reading right now then?
I Hate Fireland, the new story of it. I'm very much enjoying that. I think it's IDW. IDW have just brought out a Dungeons and Dragons comic, which is based on the cartoon from the 80s.
You are fucking shitting me?
No. Absolutely not. It's just on issue 2, so it's a good time to pick up. But it kind of picks
I'm logging off now. Bye, guys. I have to get to a shop.
Absolutely. It's mint. It's great. It's kind of them kind of carrying on and then realizing, we're never going to get home, kind of thing.
But there is a fan. Like, if anyone wants to watch, there is a fan-made episode on YouTube where the script was used because it was never actually filmed, but the fans made it, and it's perfect. Where they do get home, guys. They do get home.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I'm reading that. I haven't.
I'm gonna be fucking reading that now. You fuck this shit.
I haven't caught up, which is really bad. But there's another amazing Image comic called Saga.
Yes.
Which I haven't mentioned, but does deserve an honorable mention because Saga, although the Image had a lot of like really good comics before that. Saga back in 2015. Saga's kind of what really kind of catapulted.
Yeah.
Because it was very, very, very accessible in the sense that it could attract a whole
anyone could read
demographic of like adult readers. Like I got my sister onto it. Like my sister had always been like, "Oh, you like comics? That's kind of cute." I don't get it.
The thing is with Saga, I
gave her Saga, and she's like, "I get it. I get why you love this."
I think with Saga as well, it's got that title, not title now. It's got the reputation of the unfilmable comic because it's been tried to be made into a TV show, filmed so many times, and it always drops off development hell.
It's so strange. It's like talking cats. There's talking dogs. There's robots fucking.
That's interesting you were saying that because I had a similar experience with Saga where like a friend at work who didn't really get into comics was just like, oh yeah, like I think I'd give her like an Infinity War or something just to be like, oh yeah, it's gonna come out at the cinema, you might as well read it and then you'll know all the info before everyone else. And then she brought Saga in. It's like, all right, and then we started like trading Saga volumes and stuff, and it's like it really is one of those like interesting like any like it's a weird as hell story. One can find something interesting in it for them, I think.
It's such a Romeo and Juliet style fucked up version. It's so cool. But what an event when it came back. After its little hiatus. Massive. It was huge.
And nobody really begrudged him the hiatus either.
Absolutely not. Because
or the artist, because they worked so hard on that book.
Yeah. They needed a break.
They needed a break.
I am still waiting for Kelly Sue to bring Bitch Planet back. I am in hope that it's so good, Bitch Planet, but I am in hope.
The first few ones.
I just don't want it to go as long as the Saga one did, because then I feel like she's going to forget about it and it's never coming back.
So
I think it's definitely worth it to keep the same writer and the same artist on Saga.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely. So are you reading anything at the moment, Sam?
No.
No. So, but you just finished like the Batman kick, haven't you? Though.
Yes, I've just finished Long Halloween. I picked up another one recently, and I can't remember what that is. But I am the worst reader. I buy in consumption and then leave it.
Consume.
And then leave it, and then later on I will come back to it. So I'm not really. I haven't read anything on a run for years. That because it's too much.
Yeah,
there's too much. It's too much to keep up with. I don't know what's going on. I get lost. So I'm just at the moment. I'm just buying. Every time I go to a convention, the comic book guy's there, and he's just got thousands. I'm just picking up graphic novels. Just something that I can just read straight off the bat. It's perfect.
What about you, Jake? Are you reading anything at the moment?
No, but I've got some great recommendations now. And I did want to finally pick up like V for Vendetta and dig into that.
So good.
Because I'm more like politically minded now than when I first saw the movie. So I feel like that's a good time to dip
in. The comic definitely is more political as well.
Yeah.
And I think it's very timely to be reading that shit.
Massively.
Like,
especially when you read the opening of, because Alan Moore in the opening page tells you where he's at while he's writing it, and it's like, oh, this could be now.
He could have written it today.
Yeah,
it's very
it's on the nose and to the point.
Pick it up.
Yeah, comics are weird for me because like they're quite expensive to keep up with. Like if you're trying to do a week, week by week kind of thing, or graphic novels can sometimes if it's a massive like long thing. But no, I'm quite happy to like pick up a new recommendation if it feels like a contained story, because I think we were talking a bit while you were away, Lauren, like how a multiverse, when it like splits off into like so many different things, it can be like a turn off. But it's nice that there is still like independent comics that are just doing their own like one run, and you can get on the ground floor.
Yeah,
I think that's why Batman quite succeeds in DC, is because although Batman obviously has like big plots and big events and big stories, it is relatively self-contained. The Batman portion of DC Comics can kind of stand up on its own little sector, and there will always be some kind of self-contained Batman story being published, like White Knight, that kind of thing. There'll always be something.
Yes, I quite like the White Knight. Yeah,
and that I think that really is good of DC to do that, because in Marvel there can be too many crossovers and too many. Oh, you must read all these issues. It's just like,
oh, you will never get what's going on.
It's like, oh, no, I'll just Google that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I think it's hard.
Wikipedia is a comic book reader's best friend.
Yeah.
That's why I think Spider-Man is a little bit harder to read at times as well, because it is a continuation, and if you do fall off on it, it is hard to get back on the horse, shall we say?
Especially if you never know what's being retconned and what isn't.
Oh,
yeah.
To be fair, with some of the stuffs I do buy now, and again, I'm probably the worst buyer for this type of shit, is I go for what has the prettiest cover. And
shiny.
Yeah, that's what, like, say, when it comes to some of the big issues, and like I'll be one of these ones where I've got a lot of framed comics around us. It's not because they're worth anything or anything, just because I thought they looked like the prettiest. I normally go for, like, if I'm going to get like an older Spider-Man copy, I'll try and find the worst grade or it practically falling apart, because I don't want to read the comic. I just want to like the cover, because most of the times with some of the Spider-Mans, not saying all of them, the cover's better than the actual story.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Cool. I've gone really cold.
You put your pants back on now.
Thanks.
But yes. So I know, like I said, thank you for coming on today. We've talked to quite a long, like, Jake and Lauren. I don't know if you've got any points or any questions you've got left for us there.
I kind of want to say what I say to a lot of people is never treat comics like a chore. Never presume you have to go, especially with like little kids. If you've got a kid who wants to get into comics, don't worry about getting them an issue 1. Just let them go wild. Let them pick, obviously age appropriate, of course, but let them pick like what they, like if they want to read a comic with like an Luke Cage. Let them pick a just comic with Luke Cage on the front. You know, let them pick a comic with Scarlet Witch in the front, and let them just like learn and grow, because that's like the fun of being into comics.
Yeah.
It's just like being a bit random at first, but once you've gotten past that initial kind of scramble of, oh, I'm buying comics, like that's what happened when I was like 13, 14, buying my first comics. I just bought shit with Nightcrawler on the front, because Nightcrawler is like my favorite X-Men, ride or die. Nightcrawler will always be my favorite. But I would just buy stuff with Nightcrawler on. But then that's how I kind of worked out like what series Nightcrawler was big in, because obviously he was like mainly in X-Men, but then there was a spin-off called Excalibur, which had the like Captain Britain, and it had like Shadowcat, and it had Rachel Summers Phoenix, and it's a bit madcap, a bit weird, but like that's how I kind of discovered other characters that I liked. So that kind of spiraled out into like looking at more into, because I kind of, from having read Excalibur, I went into reading Captain Britain and MI13, and that had the Black Knight in it, and that had Spitfire in it, and Spitfire is one of the Invaders. And so I got really into Invaders, because that's where it was a retcon comic. It was written in the 70s, but it was set in the 40s, and it was like a team of Cap and his people. So that's where my own love of Namor and the original Human Torch and Bucky and Toro, that's where all that come from finding Spitfire. So, and that's really where my love of Captain America got born as well. So,
so you like the Boy Scouts?
I do. I love the Boy Scouts, but don't be afraid of discovering. Don't be afraid of buying random things. Don't be too tight, because even if you buy number one, sometimes number ones don't even make sense. Yeah, because even if it's a relaunch, it can still be like a relaunch on the weight of like 30 years of publication history. So you still kind of need to know who the fuck these people are. So you might as well go in blind with a cover that looks cool.
Yes.
And if you don't want to do that, also that's fine. Like, but like just research, just like kind of like look up, like, oh, what comics is Moon Knight in? What comics? Mostly he's in his own title, but he will pop up in other series as well. There's been some fantastic modern run Moon Knight as well. So
just depends which Moon Knight you get though as well, because
exactly.
Yeah.
But
I don't want to watch any more TV Moon Knight, that's for sure.
I enjoyed it, but I don't accept it wasn't for everybody. So yeah, just have fun with it. Don't let it be a chore.
One thing I would add to that, I agree with the random thing. If you can find an annual, are still called?
Yeah,
because they're usually quite self-contained, like a big end of year story type of thing. I've read quite a few of the Spider-Man ones of those, and they're usually quite fun, because sometimes it will just be like your boilerplate story, but other times it'll be like someone doing a little bit of experimentation on the format, or being like the Spider-Man one I read that I really liked. I don't remember the title, but it was like they were interviewing people on the street for like a TV show about Spider-Man. Everyone was telling the stories about him. And then I think at the end, he like saw the TV show and was like, oh, that was a cool self-contained thing. And I understand more about Spider-Man now.
Yeah. The annuals are really cool. They sometimes have like several little stories in it as well. It won't just be like one long story, which is, it's a taster. It's a little taste thing. And that's gonna be, but yeah, just have, don't let it be a chore. Don't let it be an obligation. I think that's one of the big problems, especially with the movie aspect. Like, I'm not saying that there are too many movies, but just.
And I think as well, don't be put off with an artist's style as well, because because everyone thinks comics all done the same way. They're completely not. They're all different pieces of art. Some are more childlike, some are more complex, some are abstract, some are for your own
straight up traced.
Yes.
No names being named. Massive problems of that artist.
Who's a Brody here?
But yeah, no.
He's just a tracer. You're nothing but a tracer. Yeah, getting on a Mallrats kick now.
Wow.
Not Chasing Amy, sorry, Chasing Amy, yes. Get me Kevin Smith reference mixed up. But yes, I like to say, I know this isn't going to be the last time we talk about comics, and it hasn't been the first. So
it's not.
we will have many adventures and many opinions on the, like I say, the drawn and the written word, shall we say? But yes, so
we're going to reboot the podcast at some point.
Multiverse.
And punch a hole in the podcast.
Many have tried, but all have failed. But yes, so thank you so much, guys, for coming on. Lauren is joining us again on Sunday for top 5 British TV comedies.
Did I say I would now? I don't.
Mm-hmm.
That's easy. Number 1's the young ones.
So yes, so that's going to be an interesting one. I think Sarah and Grant's on with that one as well.
It's going to be long. Get comfy.
Sarah's record has been over 3 hours on the podcast. So
yep. Be prepared. It's a good job. It's Bank Holiday Monday.
Yes.
Star Wars was pretty long as well.
That was short. We could have went on
short in comparison to what we can do. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that 2.5, like I say, it's more me for average now.
5-star run times. That's
5-star. But nothing can be cut out because it's all fucking gold. But yes. And Sammy will be recording for her new side quest, shall we say?
Yeah, that is. It premieres on Monday, on Bank Holiday Monday. It is Monsters Up North. Is it Monsters Up North?
Yeah, Monsters. But you better fucking know it.
I don't know why. My brain can't just put it into place. I'm like, is it Monsters or is it North Monster? I don't know.
Monsters Up North. And you're talking about the creatures of the Black Lagoon. Don't worry, I'll keep you right.
I know what it is. It's just having my brain put them 2 places in my head. And it premieres on Monday. They've got Goodwill on Friday, trekking through the universe once again.
Mm-hmm.
We are live on Sunday.
Yes.
Anything else that we've got coming up?
Everything and anything. So yes,
everything.
And watch the Twitch with the 2 Twitchell brothers.
I'll surprise you with something. I can't hold a schedule down.
We do. So, and we're also on social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We just cover all of them. The ground is all covered.
Search Nerdy Up North. We got that good brand, and we'll show
you will find us.
I need to work on the website. I know. Sorry, guys. I'm just a busy guy, but yes. So, thank you. Like I say, it's weird not saying thank you to the chat because the chat hadn't been on. But like I say, hopefully
I'm sure there will be opinions.
Yes, there will be opinions and views and.
Yes, remember to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Yes, people's been liking our stuff now, so that's always nice.
Thank you.
It has been nice. Yes.
So, guys, same bat time, same bat channel.
Stay nerdy, everyone. Bye.
Bye.